We are going to react to a very interesting video today. By the way, I don't know how to get rid of this. Once in a while, my name just pops up on the screen when I enter the studio on StreamYard and it doesn't go away. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get rid of it. So it is what it is. But we got an interesting video to react to today. Our boy, our friend, our legend, the legend himself, Liam, owner of the Bayern View channel, went on to one Premier League hater versus 20 Premier League fans YouTube video, 200K views the past couple of days already. He had a prompt which was the Premier League isn't the best league, it's just the richest, and Premier League fans got to come up and debate him on that prompt for like 10-15 minutes. So we're going to react to just Liam's part in the video because we don't have time to react to a whole 57-minute video, and we're going to retrospectively argue for him and break down these Premier League arguments, the Premier League fans that came and argued against Liam's point. Now, Liam admitted in his own live stream reaction to the video once it was public that he kind of fumbled, and I've only watched like 4 or 5 minutes of his part because I wanted to have my reaction be as raw as it can be. He did fumble a little. He did begin waffling at times, but bro, you listen, we're not all beautiful orators like Barack Obama. You know what I mean? We're not. And credit to Liam, he came out and said that he kind of fumbled in the moment with 20 people surrounding him, the camera crews, the production, the setup. But respect to him. Massive respect to Liam for getting out there and arguing and debating against these arrogant, filthy Premier League fans. So without further ado, let's get right into it and start the reaction, because this is going to be a long one, but we need to take our time to break down and take apart these Premier League bozos. So let's get into it. Here's the YouTube video. It's ran by this guy. I honestly don't know his name, but shout out. I'll put the link to this video in my description because obviously I want to give him credit. It's not my video and they're helping me out a little bit here. Something to react to. So yeah, go check out the video. It's in the description. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's just go
to the video. Hi, my name's Liam, the Bayern View, support Bayern Munich.
Ooh, Liam, look at the jersey, the hat, the beard nicely trimmed, looking into her eye. Look at oh my God. Listen, we're not gonna shame people's looks, but guy on the left looks like he's been through something. Let's get it. Look at the Bayern. Look at the red. Look at that red. That's that real red, yeah? That's that real red. None of that Manchester United, Liverpool red. That's that Bayern München red. That blood red. We bleed Bayern. Mia San Mia, Liam. Shout out. Let's go.
And my debate is the Premier League isn't the best. It's just the richest.
Okay.
Which I agree. That's a great prompt. That's a great prompt.
Premier League isn't the best. It's just the richest. If you would like to come and debate that.
And I'm going to try to pause as much as I can to speak about the video because I don't want to steal content. I don't want to just sit here and play the video and steal this guy's content. The setup and everything, brilliant video. Look at the production, white background, everyone in the Premier League jerseys. I really love how this video was set up and how they brought different people on with different prompts. So shout out to this guy, but let's get
3, 2, 1, come to the stand. Okay.
So we get a Sunderland fan coming up.
Quickly, is this counting down?
I don't know what we're doing.
Don't think so.
No,
it's not.
What's the point of this?
There we go. Without further ado, go.
Right. I know how lethal these yellow cards are, so I'm going to put all my counterpoints out, and then you just address them afterwards, however you want.
And if you don't understand the concept of these videos, if you've seen Jubilee videos, basically the crowd or the other Premier League fans have yellow cards, and if they feel like the conversation is going nowhere, if a certain amount of people put their yellow cards up, the next person will go up. Only 10 minutes to debate, Liam, on the topic. Let's go.
Firstly, if you look at the most expensive transfers in the history of football, I think top 10, 3 of those are from Premier League teams, 5 from La Liga, 2 from PSG. So in terms of the top team spending the top money, the Premier League is not necessarily dominating that. Second of all,
right away, easy rebuttal. You can't take when you're talking about the richest leagues. And by the way, I just realized my face is in the way. Let me go down here. Yeah, that's better. Actually, let's go. Actually, I don't want to block Liam's face. Let's just go down here. His point. I don't think it's really not indicative of this. It doesn't really counter the statement when you take the top 10 biggest transfer fees of all time. It doesn't, in my opinion. And the reason why is because you look at that top 10, and he said 5 of that top 10 are from Barcelona or Real Madrid. 3 are from the Premier League, 2 are from PSG. You're comparing the highest spending clubs, the most powerful clubs, obviously Real Madrid and Barcelona, the 2 biggest clubs, the two biggest sporting institutions of all sports in the 21st century. Obviously, those clubs with their power and their spending power, their attraction, they're able to attract the biggest players, the biggest stars, and have the money to spend on those big stars. So it's not really a fair comparison, because Liam's statement here is that the Premier League as a whole is just the richest, not just the top teams, the top spenders. Manchester United, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, even at this point, are big spenders after the transfer window they just had this last summer. It's not necessarily a relative point to bring up from the Sunderland fan, because he's talking about the league as a whole, top to bottom, relegation teams. And he's going to bring it up for his team, because I did watch the first 3 or 4 minutes of this section already. But Liam's talking about the league top down. You can't take the top spending teams and compare them to the other top spending teams and other big money teams in Europe. You can't, because Liam's argument here is that the Premier League as a whole isn't the best. It's just the richest. And you can't, it's not indicative of the league. It's not a fair comparison when you're taking the 6 biggest money spenders from the Premier League and comparing them to the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, who are, like I said, the 2 biggest sporting institutions in the world, with all the success they've had this year, all the money they generate. And then PSG, on the other hand, who is backed by a country. PSG is backed by a country. Obviously, they have all the money in the world to spend. And they're able to spend 220 million on Neymar, 180 million on Mbappe. All these huge transfer fees. So it's not really a good point, in my opinion, that he makes there. But anyway, let's continue. Let me get my face out of the way.
If the Premier League is not the best league, how can find me another league where the team who finishes 9th, 3 of their back 4 get handpicked to be the marquee defensive signings of 3 of the top teams in the world? Bournemouth, Dean Howson's gone to Real Madrid, Kirk has gone to Liverpool, Zabani's gone to PSG. I feel like you don't see that overall quality up and down the league in any other of the top 5 leagues. And I think another thing that you have,
again, I don't see how that's a valid argument. I don't see it. The reason why is that's an anomaly. He's the Sunderland fan. Shout out to him for coming on the video. By the way, respect to everyone here in the video, putting their faces out there and coming into debate in these videos. But again, that's not indicative of the Premier League. Name me another time a Premier League mid-table club had 3 of their defenders picked off and gone to some of the best clubs in the world. That's an anomaly. In fact, that's probably the first time that's ever happened. So you can't just take an anomaly like that Bournemouth team last year. You can't just take that anomaly and just say, oh, that's indicative of the whole Premier League. Because that's never happened before. Bournemouth just happened to have, because of their own good scouting, because of their own proper scouting network that they set up at that club, they just happen to pick these players up and bring them to their clubs. But that's an anomaly. And by the way, if you look at those players, Milos Kerkez has gone to Liverpool. He's looking kind of suspect. Dean Howson looks a little too young. He doesn't seem like he's ready for that high level at Real Madrid yet. But obviously, I think he will succeed at some point. And Zabarni, I don't watch enough PSG to know how well Zabarni's doing at PSG. But again, that's just an anomaly. When has that ever happened before? So how can you take an anomaly like that Bournemouth team last year, where 3 of their backline went to 3 of the biggest clubs in the world in the following summer in the transfer window, and say, oh, that's indicative of the Premier League, that's indicative of the strength of the Premier League as a whole? When it's just one team, it's just an anomaly. So you're telling me the previous season that happened again with another mid-table team like Brighton? Brighton had 4 defenders, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders picked off, and they went to all the best teams in Europe? No. That's an anomaly. That's not truly indicative of the overall quality of all 20 teams in the Premier League and how strong it is. It's not. That was just a one-off case where Bournemouth, because of their excellent scouting, ended up having 3 very talented defenders on their books. It's not like Brighton. It's not like Crystal Palace does have many good defenders, but it's not like Brighton. It's not like Everton and all these other mid-table teams in the Premier League have 3, 4, their whole back lines are highly sought after by the biggest teams in Europe. They're not. So it's not indicative of the entire strength of the Premier League. It's just not. It's an anomaly, and it doesn't really, because if I was able to ask this guy, okay, that's an anomaly. Can you give me another case where a 10th place, 9th place team in the Premier League had so many players picked off and gone to the biggest clubs in the world? You can't do that. And that's not just the Premier League. In fact, the Bundesliga, he's talking about how like the Premier League also is this big talent factory. It's not. Again, it's just an anomaly. Compare it to the Bundesliga or Ligue 1. How much talent gets churned out of that league? How many talents every single season get churned out, sold for 50, 60, 70, 80 million, sought after by the big Premier League teams, sought after by Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, sought after by all the big teams in Europe. Guys like Leipzig. A couple years ago, these guys had Konate, Mukiele, Upamecano, all in their back line, all highly sought after defenders. Upamecano went to Bayern, Konate went to Liverpool. And Leipzig continuously churns out these talents and sell play. Right now, Leipzig has 3-4 players, Nusa, Diomande, etc., who will probably get sold for 80 million, 90 million euros in the next coming transfer windows. A team like Frankfurt, who typically hover around mid-table Europa League spots and sometimes have a one-off good season and get into the Champions League, last season, they had players, they sold 2 megastars. Ekitike for 90 whatever million to Liverpool, Omar Marmoush to 75, 80 million to Manchester City. So our teams, our mid-table teams, our teams in the Bundesliga also churn out talent on a much more consistent basis. They also churn out players highly sought after Europe by big European clubs more often than Premier League clubs do. That's just the fact. How often do teams from La Liga, Bayern, PSG, teams from Serie A look at the Premier League and say, "Oh, I want to bring this youngster from the Premier League. Oh, I need to bring this youngster from the Premier League." Not really that often every summer. People are mainly looking at the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, even La Liga for these young starlets. Now, right now in the Premier League, there's some young players. Some young players that are highly sought after. A guy like Adam Morton. Now that's a top quality player right there. Young, top quality player. He's definitely sought after throughout all of Europe. Who else? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I feel like that's what I would have said to him in that case if he brought that up to me in the video.
To take into account.
And obviously, it's easy for me to sit here, not with 20 people surrounding me, not with a whole professional camera setup surrounding me. It's easy for me to counter, right, from home. So, got to take that into account.
I need to find next year to talk about something, obviously. But you look at us, we've come up. Yes, we've got money, but it's an ambitious project.
A lot of transfers.
You've attracted a lot of good players, but then you look at another league. Paris FC, for example, they've just come up to Ligue 1. They've got this massive backing from Red Bull. They probably have just as much, if not more money at their disposal than Sunderland do.
I counter that. Oh, actually, I'll let him finish.
Players going to be inclined to go and play for a recently promoted Ligue 1 team, or maybe it's like a Serie A team. Mm-hmm. They're not, because it's not as good as the Premier League. I feel like, yes, don't get us wrong, it probably is the richest league, but that's because the most quality is on display, and that's why the most money gets generated.
See, that's just not true. There is no evidence to back that. Oh, our league is the highest quality. That's why we're able to pay higher wages, and that's why our relegation teams or our promotion teams are able to bring in more transfers, attract more talent than the promoted teams in the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1. What's the evidence for that? What's your definition of the best? Absolutely, Sunderland made these signings, attracted Xhaka, attracted a young, amazing player like Christian Talby, or whatever his first name is, Talby, baller, who was a baller at Club Brugge, bringing in a supremely talented French international player like Mukiele into their team. Trust me, you guys, and respect to Sunderland, and in Sunderland's case, respect to Sunderland. I loved that Netflix documentary. I love what Sunderland are doing in the Premier League right now. They're freaking top 4. Big respect to them because they had the money to spend on so many transfers and bring the quality of that squad up to Premier League caliber. But why do they have all that money? Because the Premier League is the biggest league in the world, and it's considered the best league largely because why? What's the most spoken language in the world? English. What's the most universal language in the world? English. The fact that the Premier League is an English league, it's in England, that is the number one factor into the Premier League being as big as it is. And because it's so big, because it's has that universal factor to it, more sponsorships, more eyeballs, bigger TV deals, etc., more eyeballs, right? But is that indicative of the quality of the league? Is that? And I think there's been a lot of discourse the last couple of years talking about, man, the general quality of the Premier League is actually dropping. It's not as good as it was in the 2000s or in the early 2010s. So yeah, and also onto his other point about like making the comparison of Sunderland to Red Bull. It's absolutely not the same comparison. Sunderland went out there, and credit to them, they scouted players well. They scouted good transfers, right? But Sunderland had the money to spend. That is completely opposite from the Red Bull system. The Red Bull system is nothing like what Sunderland did. Sunderland went out, scouted some good players, but also still had to spend 10, 20, 30, 40 million, I think, even on a bunch of transfers to bring these high quality players in to boost their team quality to survive in the Premier League and compete, which they are doing now. It's successful. But the Red Bull system is nothing like that. The Red Bull system has a very well established scouting network all around the world, and they do hardcore scouting to bring completely unknown, no-name players into the Red Bull system and develop them. They're not spending 10, 20, 30 million to bring players into the Red Bull system, develop them, and then sell them off for 60, 70, 80 million. They're not. They're just picking guys off the street, unknown leagues, unknown players playing for unknown teams, because they have one of the best scouting networks set up around the world. In France, in South America, or I don't know if they have a scouting network in South America, but their scouting network in France and across Europe is extensive and well established. And you know that the evidence of that is Leipzig consistently every single year have a new African talent, have a new European, have a new French talent that everyone's going to be looking after. Right now, like I said, they have about 4 players that I guarantee you will be sold for at least 70, 80 million each in the next coming transfer windows. It's nothing like Sunderland. Sunderland used their financial power and the financial power that comes with the Premier League to bring these players in. Now, if you hypothetically if you were in a hypothetical world, say a promoted team like in the Bundesliga, Hamburg, a promoted team like Paris FC that he brought up, and Sunderland, let's just take those 3 teams. And let's hypothetically say all these teams have the same spending power. They all had the ability to bring players in for 10, 20, 30 million euro transfer fees and offer 100K plus wages a week. Would those players choose the Premier League? Would they? I'm not too sure. I don't know what the evidence is for him to say, oh, they're choosing the Sunderland, obviously, because it's the highest quality. No. Do you think Xhaka really left life in Germany? Guys, I guarantee Xhaka loves Germany. He has spent many years of his career in Germany. I guarantee you he took that big fat paycheck from Sunderland to go play in the Premier League. If the paycheck wasn't as nice, if the paycheck wasn't as thick, he's not going to Sunderland. Mukiele is not coming to Sunderland. Maybe Christian Talby doesn't go to a Sunderland. But they had the money. They had the financial power that, one, came from their owners, but also the financial power and flex that comes with being in the Premier League to spend that way. That's just the truth. I think if Hamburg could offer the money that Sunderland could, if Paris FC could offer the money that Sunderland could, I don't think you could be so sure and say, oh, people would still choose Sunderland to go and play in the Premier League. I don't think so. I think it would be much closer than people think. It would.
I hear you fully, but at the same time, like, you know, look for instance, you just come up and you take Xhaka straight away from one of the better teams in the Bundesliga anyway, which I'm glad, don't get it twisted, but at the same time, that's not the point of this debate. And then I would also say, you know, when you look at Bayern Munich, when we won the Champions League, you know, smashed everyone, and people call it the COVID one, but whatever, it is what it is. We were smashing everyone. You know, I would have loved to play Barca again. You know, that would have been amazing, but
you see, Liam's waffling. Liam, you're waffling. Shout out Liam, bro. He's kind of waffling here. Like, why are you talking about Barcelona? Like, yeah, whatever, bro. Shout out Liam, bro. Shout out. That's my boy.
The team was worth 100 million overall, where, you know, you could, what was City's team won, you know, when they won it, when they won the treble. You know what I mean? That's where my counter argument would go with that. So yeah, like with the Premier League again, you get like Leon Bailey went to, I believe, Villa, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Loads of our players are built. Look at Marmoush, for instance. What's he done at City since he's been there? Nothing really, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Where he could have come to Bayern, and I think he would have been one of our better players, in my opinion. So,
And I can understand your point.
Yeah, I don't really know what Liam is trying to say there in counter to the 3 points that the Sunderland fan brought up. I don't really know what that. Yeah, like Liam said that, like, he started waffling. Like, he said it in his own live stream reaction to this. So yeah, credit to him for realizing that. Yeah, that didn't really counter any of the points the guy made. I could see where he was going with the Xhaka point. The fact that Sunderland was able, because of their spending power of being in the Premier League, to take a guy like Granit Xhaka, who's probably been a top 10 midfielder the last 2 seasons in Europe. I could see where, but the argument kind of fell off. He kind of got distracted.
But I feel like
I'm back. I hate when people can hear that I'm making a video and they still knock and just open the door. I'm busy, bro. Leave me alone. I don't even remember where we're at. So let's just get back into the video and hear this man out.
Like the best teams in each division is one conversation, but when you look at the league as a whole, I think that's what makes the Premier League the best. I think if you look at the likes of the bottom end teams in Serie A, bottom end teams in Ligue 1, they would get absolutely whitewashed by every team in the Premier League for the most part. I feel like.
But what's your evidence for that? Again, he's just saying these classic Premier League arrogant fan talking points. Oh, everyone in our league, even our relegation teams, would absolutely wash, batter, and destroy the relegation teams of the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, La Liga, Serie A. What's your evidence of that? You can't just say that. What's your evidence of that? Because let me tell you now, I'm looking at the relegation teams in the Premier League this year. God-awful teams. Wolves? You're telling me Wolves versus Hamburg is a 6-0 smashing for Wolves? Bro, I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure about that. Like, what's the evidence for that? There's no evidence in Europe or anything to say that the relegation teams of the Premier League would destroy the relegation teams of the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, La Liga, Serie A. What's the evidence for that? So again, they're just saying that. They're just saying that. But again, by saying that, in my opinion, they're playing into Liam's prompt. Why are they saying that? Because they believe their league is the best, and they know their league is the best because of how much money the league has and how much greater the spending power top to bottom of the Premier League teams are compared top to bottom to the rest of the leagues. So by saying these things, you're kind of admitting to the truth in Liam's statement, because the spending power is undeniably a huge factor into why these Premier League fans think top to bottom the Premier League teams would destroy all the other teams in the other leagues. The spending power is a massive reason why. Massive reason. So again, it's just a statement with no evidence, no factual, no objective evidence behind it. It's just a classic Premier League arrogant talking point.
You feel free to disagree. Other than the likes of Como who've come up, they've done quite well for the most part.
Yeah. No, okay.
I feel like
fair, but at the same time, would there not be more Champions Leagues in England then, if that was the case?
But we were talking about this before. There's been more in the last however long. There's been more different Premier League winners than there has any other league.
Okay. Okay, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, and what Liam should have said here is, that's exactly my point. That's exactly his point. Because the Premier League has such high spending power compared to all the other leagues, they have the ability to bring in. They have 6 teams, 7 teams that are able to bring in the best players in the world. And their mid-table teams are able to compete with top 4 teams in other leagues because of the money they have, because of the spending power they have. That kind of plays into Liam's point. The Premier League is able to produce so many different Champions League finalists and so many different Champions League winners over the last 10, 15 years because of that spending power, because they're able to splash that cash and bring these players in. Are you telling me Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal would be as strong as they are today if they had this spending plan of a Bayern who refused to pay, except for the case of Harry Kane, refused to pay 100 million plus for players, refused to pay 60 million, for example, this past summer for Nick Voltemata because it's at 60 million. He was massively overpriced, but Newcastle came in at the end of the window and bought him for 90. If the Premier League fans were limited to the spending plans of Bayern, the spending plans of Sevilla, Dortmund, Marseille, Lyon, Roma, they would not be as strong. They will not have such consistent success in Europe. But because of that spending power, they're able to do this. So again, everything he's saying plays into Liam's prompt that the Premier League isn't the best. It's just the richest. Now, I guess, yeah. And even then, when I watch Premier League football, all these players they're able to bring in, all this money they're able to spend, when I watch Premier League, and this is just my subjective fan opinion on when I watch Premier League games, it's not as entertaining. For me, it's not the best. It's not as entertaining as a Bundesliga game. The average Premier League game for me is not as interesting and as entertaining as the average Bundesliga game. The average, maybe I'll just say Bundesliga because I don't watch a bunch of football from Serie A, La Liga. I only watch like the top teams play in those leagues. So I can't tell you much about top to bottom for those leagues, but at least compared to the Bundesliga, I prefer the Bundesliga. I think Bundesliga games are much more entertaining. So again, it also comes down to what's your definition of the best? Is it the amount of quality players you have? Is it the success in Europe? Is it the amount of money you have? The amount of money you're able to spend? What's your measure of best? For me, like football is any other sport. People would not get into sports. People would not watch football if it wasn't entertaining. At the end of the day, all this stuff is all about entertainment. For me, the best leagues are the best football matches are the ones where I'm entertained the most. So again, it's all subjective, really. It's all just opinions.
I just think, with the Serie A, that was the main league. You know what I mean? And now, it's not. It's terrible. It's absolutely diabolical, to be quite honest with you. So
exactly. So there we go. We're talking about these top leagues being bad,
fully. But I mean,
that is why the Premier League is the best.
Yeah, no, I see that, but with all of the money, like look at the 50+1 in the Bundesliga. You know what I mean? We can't have sheikhs or whatever coming over and.
Okay, well done, Pazik. Nicely done. We've got just over 6 minutes left to argue the same point that actually the Premier League isn't the best. It's just the richest. 3, 2, 1. Who else would like to come to the table? Alice, welcome.
All right, we got a Manchester United fan named Alice.
With the Premier League, it's one of those leagues.
So I don't think I've watched any of this part with the girls. So let's see what happens.
Like you can be a really good team that spends a load of money, and you might not even get Champions League football. You've got 6 teams that are competing for those 4 spaces. You've got Newcastle, you've got Aston Villa that are good sides. Forest were in the race. And if you look at some of the teams that finished, mid-table, Crystal Palace, I think, could finish much higher in another league. I think you've got the likes of, as I mentioned earlier, Bournemouth that came 9th, and half their backline was picked for top sides. I think if you brought a lot of the stronger Premier League sides into, not even the stronger Premier League sides, the mid-table Premier League sides into the Bundesliga or into Ligue 1, I think they're in that Champions League race. And I think in the Premier League this season, you have to be at the top of your game.
That's absolutely not true. And if she's talking about the reason why she's talking about mid-table, oh my gosh, my cursor isn't working. My cursor isn't fucking working. She's talking about
Chelsea, Arsenal, City.
Oh my God, what is going on? I hate Apple. I hate you. I hate you. This isn't true. There's evidence to back this up. She's talking about middle of the pack Premier League teams would be able to go to a Bundesliga. She's bringing up the Bundesliga because obviously Liam's a Bayern fan, Bundesliga watcher, Bundesliga fan. She's saying a Crystal Palace. She's saying a Bournemouth. She's saying these kinds of teams will go to the Bundesliga and be Champions League contenders. But are you sure of that? Because if you take away the Champions League, because if you're thinking of mid-table teams, close to Europa League spot teams, you could look at the Conference League now, and you could look at the Europa League. if you look at the head-to-head matchups of Bundesliga teams in Conference League and Europa League, when they play these Premier League teams in the Conference League and the Europa League, the Premier League doesn't overly dominate the Bundesliga teams. In fact, it's pretty even. In Europe, the Bundesliga mid-table teams or the Europa League teams are showing that they are able to compete just as equally as these amazing middle-of-the-pack teams that she's talking about. She's saying, "Oh, Crystal Palace, all these teams are really good, but the big six of the Premier League are even better because they're able to spend and bring the best players in." But the evidence in Europe, the evidence in the Europa League and Conference League doesn't overwhelmingly back that claim. It doesn't overwhelmingly back that claim. And now the Conference League is a new competition, so I'm mainly talking about the Europa League. But if you look at the Europa League, and let's just go last 15 years in the Europa League and look at matchups where Bundesliga teams played Premier League teams, I remember I checked this like a year and a half ago, a while ago, but I think the Premier League has a slight edge, but they're not overwhelmingly dominant against these Bundesliga Europa League middle of the table teams. They're not as overwhelmingly as dominant as they say they are. So again, they're just saying this because it's a classic arrogant Premier League talking point. But again, I guarantee you right now, as I continue this video, she doesn't bring up any cases. She doesn't bring up any matches in the Europa League. She doesn't even mention the Europa League. She doesn't mention any instance or situation where middle of the table Bundesliga teams play middle of the table Premier League teams, because it's just a talking point. It's just another thing that they read on the internet, another thing they're taught. The Premier League's the best, blah, 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 blah. And again, she's bringing up the quality of the big six. Why are the quality of Crystal Palace and all these other teams rising in order to keep up with the big six of the Premier League? It's because of that money. They have the money to keep pushing and bringing players in and spending money and bringing talents in to make their teams better. Again, it all comes down to money, and that's Liam's prompt. The Premier League isn't the best, it's just the richest. They're able to be so good. They're able to have such a high-level league because of the money that comes into the league. If the Premier League, say German, Spanish, French, and Italian, and English were all equally spoken around the world, the Premier League wouldn't have such a grip on the club footballing market as it does. It wouldn't. I'm telling you, English is a massive factor. The fact that English is the most spoken language in the world is a massive factor, a huge factor as to why the Premier League is so popular. It's a big factor.
For the title being the top four, but they've got to be at the top of their game because, Spurs are improving. I know Newcastle and Villa haven't had the best starts of the season, but they're good sides. And, Manchester United's expectation is to be there when we're nowhere near right now. But there's 6 massive clubs, and I feel like that no other league has 6 huge clubs in their league.
But why is that? It's because of the money. That's what Liam's saying. The Premier League is able to be so good, not because it's so good, because English football is so great and the quality of the Premier League is so great. It's because of the money, the sponsorships, the TV deals. It's because of the amount of money that flows into this league and how it's spread them out amongst the league as to why the Premier League has historically able to have the last 10, 15 years a historic big six. Man City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. And it is why the Premier League right now are slowly, with the introduction of sheikhs, Newcastle, and other teams that bring on big money investor groups into their clubs. You're seeing, hold on, I need to pause real quick. I'm back. I anticipated another interruption. But again, now you're seeing a Newcastle with the Saudi groups coming in and injecting so much money into the club, spending 90 million on a guy like Nick Voltemata this past summer. Newcastle will slowly, with the amount of money that gets pumped in this club over the next year, will be able to get to that top 6 status, and eventually it will be a top 7 of big clubs in the Premier League. And maybe Aston Villa will eventually get there, etc., because of the spending power, because of the money, because of the richness of the league, because of the wealth that these Premier League clubs pull in, including relegation teams. So again, I don't see how this proves Liam's point wrong. Liam's prompt wrong. Because they're not bringing any evidence. They're not bringing any other statements besides, oh, we're the best. We have 6 big clubs. Why do you guys have 6 big clubs? Why do you have 6 superpower spending teams? Honestly, 7 superpower spending teams. You got to put Newcastle up in there with the rest of those original big 6 with the amount of money they're able to spend. What makes them have so many huge teams and so many big money spending teams in the group? Because they're rich, because of the money. A rich team is able to spend a lot of money because they make a lot of money. They have a lot of money, lots of revenue.
Okay. Well, with Newcastle, again, there's the money comes straight into it. I believe Villa have got some money behind them as well. And I obviously mentioned earlier about them getting Diaby, so again, similar to the
Again, Liam's kind of like, he's kind of focusing in on like specific player instances. Like he brought up Xhaka to Sunderland, Leon Bailey to Aston Villa, Diaby to Aston Villa, being pulled for the Bundesliga. It doesn't really counter any other points. I guess he could spin it in a way that, oh, if the Premier League is the best, why aren't big Premier League teams often buying top talents from these lower Premier League teams? Why are they constantly, majority of the time, looking at the Bundesliga, Ligue 1, La Liga, Serie A to bring players in? Now, that's the truth. Liam could have spun it that way and say, okay, if your league is so good because you're the best, how come majority of the highly sought after youngsters and talents that come into the Premier League, how come the majority of these big clubs in your league, primarily, first choice, they're looking at Bundesliga, Ligue 1, La Liga, Serie A? Why is that? He could have spun it in that direction. If your league is the best and you have so much quality, how come your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Chelseas, your Arsenals, your Tottenhams are looking primarily outside of the league to bring top quality, top talents in? If your league is the best, if your league has so much footballing quality, it's not just the richness and monetary power of your league, right?
of a fan. My personal opinion is, with it being the richest league, of course you're gonna, get some players in, maybe not the best players, but like Harry Kane left that league. Okay, cool, he was at Tottenham, but he left that league to go and win a trophy, to go and win. We got the Bundesliga, and now we're pushing on.
He was
hopefully.
also priced out by Levy. I think if you move to another Premier League side, I
Okay.
think he
Yeah,
would have added
fair.
another 30, 40
But why?
million.
Okay, so what about Michael Elise then?
Again, I think it was a Newcastle Bayern. He did go to Bayern because Bayern were in the Champions League and he wants to win trophies. But I think, when it comes to the top Prem sides, normally they do pick a Liverpool over a Bayern Munich. Not every scenario,
Okay.
like a lot of the German players.
Name me multiple cases where Liverpool was chosen over Bayern. Often Liverpool and Bayern actually aren't going after the main players. The big one is Wirtz, obviously, this last summer. And Arne Slot was able to convince him and his father more than company. But you're seeing how that's playing out now with how Wirtz is playing out Liverpool and how Liverpool now 6 losses in last 7 games.
Players will stay in Germany, apart
Germany,
from
yeah.
obviously Wirtz recently.
Yeah.
But I think that's that pull to the Premier League because I think one of the reasons it's the richest is because it's the most watched. It's like there's so many fans of the Premier League, and I think obviously it being like English, you've got all the American people and all the people that speak English that watch it, but it's got such a large following, which has allowed it to make so much money through sponsorships and everything, to make it the richest. And also, like, one thing the Premier League has, and actually to be fair, Bundesliga has this as well, is where some of the smaller teams have such loyal fan bases all the way through the football tiers, and I think that sort of makes it like bigger and more profitable because there's fans going to the stadium investing in their sides. And I think a lot of people want to come to the league for the passion of the fans and obviously how big it is as a platform.
Would you not say?
And those are some good points she made. I think her name was Alice, if I remember correctly. Those are some good points. I agree with most of that. But again, if you've noticed anything, do these the guys I've came out, the Sunderland fan and this Manchester United fan. Again, she brought up, because it's English speaking, like I brought up multiple times in this reaction already. And because of that, they're able to bring in the sponsorships, the money, the TV deals, the eyes. The money. All that means money, more money. But have you noticed that none of them are actually speaking to counter Liam the actual quality of the league. They're not coming up to Liam and saying, "Oh, how can you say it's just the riches? Look at the way this team plays and the beautiful football they play and their style of play." They're not coming up and trying to debate anything about the actual football of the Premier League. They keep defaulting to very general Premier League fan statements that basically all lead back to money. It all leads back to everything these two Premier League fans have said is it all leads back to money. Their statements, "Oh, we're able to bring in the best, we're able to attract the top talents." Why? Because of the money. It's because of the money. They're not talking about the football. See, and that kind of just shows you subconsciously that these Premier League fans think their league is the best, and a huge factor in that is the fact that they know that their league has the biggest monetary power of all the leagues top to bottom. They know that. They know that. And I feel like it's just kind of showing itself here with Liam's debate topic.
With the money that it has and is allowed to spend, a Premier League club, if I'm right by saying, can stay in the league and get 100 million straight away through staying up. Where if a Bundesliga team, a Serie A team, Juventus, for instance, they've got Vlahovic, that I actually think he's the highest paid player in that whole league, and that's where again money comes into it. So I think because it's the richest, they can offer those wages.
Yeah, but I think it's the richest.
I don't really know what he was getting at with Vlad. Is he saying? Yeah, I don't know what Liam was getting at there. Maybe Vlahovic isn't even paid that much, but he's the highest paid player in Serie A. I don't know if that's true. I'd have to double check that. I have to fact check that. But because Vlahovic, some random B tier striker, is the most well-paid player in Serie A, it just shows you how low the spending power and wage bills of the Serie A teams are compared to the Premier League, who have the biggest wage bills.
Because it is the most watched, because it has some of the best players and some of the biggest teams and some of the biggest talents. It's like it's the richest and it's also the best, and obviously that goes together. But I think there's a point where
and see, that's where I just fundamentally disagree. It's not the richest and the best in tandem. It's the best. But first of all, I don't think it's the best. But from their arguments lead towards more of a statement like, we're the best because we're the richest, not we're the richest and the best. We're the best because we are the richest, because we're able to bring in the best talents and spend the most money and have the highest wage bills. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, all their arguments so far to Liam don't support a claim of, "Oh, we're the richest and the best." Their claims and their statements to Liam in this video on this prompt support more of a statement like, we are the best because we're the richest, not in tandem like we're the best and the richest at the same time. Because they're not bringing up any actual footballing conversation about why the football is better. They're not. They're constantly defaulting to eyeballs, money, etc., etc.
Barcelona's Real Madrid, they'll give out some crazy wages. Barcelona have had to obviously lower down their wage bill.
Mhm.
It's obviously in general the Premier League's the richest, but Barcelona and Real Madrid can match the wages that Man United and City offer. Juventus in the past have done it. I think Vlahovic is on like over 300 grand a week or something. Like, it's not.
I'm getting a call. So many distractions. I feel like it's derailed this reaction video, but anyway, let's just continue.
Just the Premier League that can handle those wages. Other
Mhm.
big clubs can too. I think the Premier League just have more big clubs, like a 13th place team in the Premier League can spend a lot more money than a 13th place team in like La Liga, for example.
That's true. So how does that support your argument against Liam's claim? Liam is arguing that the Premier League is the richest, not the best. And you're telling him that, yeah, we are the richest. But then they make no argument as to why their football is the best and why their league is the best. They just say, yeah, we're the richest. So do you understand what I'm saying? Like, am I tripping? They're almost agreeing with Liam's statement. It's strange. I don't know. It's strange.
I'm with you, but at the same time, like with some of the, would you not say some of the Spanish teams they play better football?
I mean, you can say that like they're more technical and
Okay.
on the eye better football, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of mid-table Spanish teams could come to the Premier League and probably get relegated because of the physicality.
Okay.
And what's your evidence of that? Did you English people not watch the Euro final and not watch how the technicality of the Spanish players completely outclassed the physical bruteness of the English national team in that Euro final? Was that not apparent to you guys? Weird. Like, what's the evidence? Again, what's the evidence for that? What's the evidence for that? Now, obviously, in the Champions League this year, we've seen Arsenal batter Athletic Club. We've seen Manchester City go away to Villarreal and win 2-0. Those are two decent, and I think Tottenham and Villarreal actually tied 0-0. And those are some good cases. But again, she's saying mid-table La Liga teams will go to the Premier League and most likely get relegated because of the physicality of the league. What's your evidence for that? Really, what's the evidence? Like, can you bring up some cases where in Europa League, a Premier League mid-table team destroyed a Spanish mid-table team? And in fact, Spanish teams typically perform the best in these European competitions. So again, what's the basis of that statement? What was the basis of that statement? Like, where's the evidence to back that up? There is none.
Okay, we've got about a minute and a half. Alex, well done, my friend. Well done. We've got a minute and 30 seconds or so in order to finish this debate. Would anybody else like to take the seat in 3, 2, 1? Well done. Okay, welcome.
Crystal
He took
Palace.
Elise. Let him have it.
I think we're straying away from your actual argument, which was the Premier League isn't the best league; it's just the richest. Firstly, I want to ask: do you think that the Bundesliga is better than the Premier League?
Yes.
In what way? Because from my perspective, Bayern Munich can kind of handpick all of the best players in the league.
I totally disagree.
But look how many players they've signed from Dortmund. I mean, and then they win the league.
Again, like, what is this old ass 10-year-old? Bro, when is the last time we signed someone from Dortmund? Seriously. When is the last time we cherry-pick players from Dortmund? Dortmund have bought way more players from rival Bundesliga teams than Bayern the last 10 years. So again, this guy came in strong, and I thought he was about to talk about the actual football, which I think he is, but then he uses such a outdated. When is the last time Bayern cherry-picked from Dortmund and completely ravished their team, taking Lewandowski, Götze, Hummels, all that? It's been 10 years since all that went down. Pick a new topic, man. Pick a new argument. That's outdated as fuck.
Dortmund, I'm glad you went with that, because Dortmund are actually the team that's taken the most Bundesliga players. Look at it this season. Wirtz, for instance, went to Liverpool. Nick Voddermaid went to Newcastle, and they all priced us out. So we have to now go with Premier League players, bringing them in.
But then your argument about Harry Kane going to the Bundesliga to win a trophy.
Yeah.
Do you not think that kind of dismisses what you're saying, because he's left the Premier League and he's gone to the Bundesliga because it's easier for him to win a trophy there?
No. It's easier for him to win a trophy at Bayern because it's Bayern. Bayern compete for the league, the cup, and most importantly, the Champions League every year. He was not going to do that ever at Tottenham. Yes, I know he got to a Champions League final, but he was freaking injured. And he dropped a disaster class in that Champions League final against Liverpool 6 years ago. And Daniel Levy, because he's a petty little bitch, was never going to let him go to Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal. So he had to go away from the Premier League no matter what. It wasn't a case of, oh, Harry Kane's leaving the Premier League to go play for Bayern in the Bundesliga to get an easy trophy. If anything, we saw that in his debut season. Now, maybe it was the football gods, the coincidence, the Harry Kane curse. The season he went to Bayern, Bayer Leverkusen had the most legendary Bundesliga season, going undefeated, the first Bundesliga invincible season. So the fact that he went there and in the first season, he went up against such a Goliath Leverkusen squad and couldn't win the league, dismantles this guy's argument. It wasn't easy. The first league title wasn't easy. And last year, It was a grind. Bayern didn't easily win that Bundesliga. Leverkusen were pushing. So again, I don't. The guy's argument falls flat here.
No, I wouldn't
Because he
say
scored
so.
hatfuls of goals every season for Spurs, but wasn't able to win.
Because it's Spurs. Bro, it's Spurs. Who just won their first trophy last year with Ange, and it was the Europa League. No FA Cup, no Karabuki Club, no Cup, no Premier. They haven't competed for the Premier League since that Leicester City season, I believe it was. So I don't know what the argument was from that guy there, but
Full time. Well debated, everybody. Smashed it. Congratulations.
My name's Alice.
and we're done. 50 minutes. Damn, I yapped for a while. 50 minutes. Yeah. Even, shout out to Liam for going on there. I'm sure the pressure was high with all those eyes on you, the camera. Even now, I'm speaking from my own room, and I feel like I wasn't able to articulate my counterpoints that well. And I'm sitting in the comfort of my room with nobody watching, putting out a video and recording a video that maybe 10 people will watch. You know what I mean? So big respect to Liam for going on there. Big respect for the Premier League fans to go up there and give their opinions. But I feel like for the most part, the first two guys, the Sunderland and the Manchester United lady, they just kept on saying, we're the best, we're the richest, we're bringing them more money. But they never talked about the football. I think that last guy, the Crystal Palace guy, was going to come in. If he had more time, he was going to talk more about the football aspect of it. But obviously, his arguments fall flat in the end. He used outdated 10-year-old talking points on the matter, and he didn't have enough time to expand on whatever he wanted to talk about. So, yeah, shout out to Liam for going on there. That's my reaction. Those are my takes. The breakdown of the drama, the back and forth. Just kidding. It was chill. I like that video. I'm probably gonna go because I watched the first parts before Liam's. I haven't watched the other half of the video after Liam's section, so I'm probably gonna, after this, do some homework and stuff and listen to that in the background. So yeah, I'm gonna put the description to that video, the link to that video in my description. So if anyone wants to watch the whole thing, go and click on it in the description. So shout out to that YouTube channel for making that call out. Shout out to the Bayern View. Shout out to Liam for going on there and making his case. And yeah, good vibes, civil conversations. It's been your boy Hokage. I'll see you guys in the next Mia San Mia. Peace. I'm a mess today. Adios.